Here we go. Let's review. I think if I were a betting person, I would bet that there is a question on the quiz that says this. Point P is 3, -2. Point Q is 4, 1. Find PQ. Find midpoint PQ. Find equation of line PQ. So really that's 3 questions, but it's all built on the same given. Okay? What does this mean? When we say find just plain old PQ, what does that mean? Find the distance. And the distance, remember, is a square root. And under the square root goes 3 minus 4 squared and -2 minus 1 squared. Everybody remember this? Let's get those cobwebs out. So we have 3 minus 4 squared would be 1, and -2 minus 1 squared would be 9. So our answer is the square root of 10. Remember, if you get an answer like the square root of 32, you have to break it down. So you break this down to 4 root 2. If you are having trouble with that, you need to get in here before school and we need to review it. You need to be able to do that. Okay? Now, midpoint, say points, midpoint. How do we find midpoint? Add them and divide by 2. It's called the average, right? We're going to add them and divide by 2. So 3 and 4 makes 7 divided by 2. -2 plus 1 divided by 2. Got it? Now, here's P4. This is the last thing we talked about. Write the equation of the line. How do we start that problem? What do we have to do first if we're writing the equation of a line? Yes.
Find the slope.
Find the slope. So the slope, and I'll use the slope letter M. So the slope is y minus y over x minus x. So y minus y over x minus x. And don't you dare get that turned upside down. Remember when you graph, y is always on top of x. In slope, y is always on top of x. So what do I get? What is my slope? 3 over 1 or 3. Now what do I do? Well, you have a choice. No one cares how you do it. What's your choices, Lucas? Bingo. Y equals mx plus b. Now that's Lucas's preferred method is to use the what we call the slope-intercept form. And he said pick either point, P or Q, and I'll probably pick Q because then I don't have to mess with the negative. But either point, that's my x, that's my y, into the equation it goes. So 1 equals m times x plus b. So 1 equals 12 plus b, and b equals -11. So my answer, that is not my answer. My answer is y equals 3x minus 11. Y equals m, which is 3, x plus b, which is negative 11. Okay? All right, now let's look at our note sheets and see what comes next. We're ready for P5. Solve graphically with the calculator. Oh my gosh, do we know how to do that? Yes, we went through it the other day. Remember? So we're going to get out our calculator. We're not going to do all of these together because we've already practiced it, but we're going to do the first one together. Now, if you do not have a graphing calculator, you are not going to be able to do this problem. Mrs. Ford has asked you to bring your graphing calculator to class every day. You need to get in the habit of doing that. Okay, so I'm going to put that in on my calculator, and then I'll do my best to draw on the board what I see. So I go to y equals, and I put this in. And remember, your variable button is the button that has the x, the t, the 3, and the n on it. Just press it and it'll come up an x. And I got a picture that looked like this. Any squared equation is going to have a parabola shape. Now, it may not always be pointed up, it may be upside down, but any squared equation is going to have a parabola shape. Now, is everybody getting a parabola? Remember, once you put the equation in, just hit graph, and this shape should come up. We don't have to do anything fancy, we just hit graph. Now, do you remember when we are solving it, these are the points we're looking for. Does anybody remember how to find those points? There's a special button we press. Do you remember what it is? Second calc. And when we press second calc, we get an option that says 0. These are the zeros. This is a 0. So we press that option. And then do you remember left bound, right bound? So we move the cursor so it's over here somewhere. Your little arrow button will do that for you. And then you move it so it's over here somewhere. And then you move it so it looks like it's on that point, or as close as you can get to it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as you can get to it. And what does it tell you that 0 is? -3. So one of your answers is -3. Now usually they come out to be freakish decimals, but this one's just -3. Now what do we have to do? Repeat and find the other one. So back to second calc, 0, and now your left bound and right bound are going to be around this point. So I'm moving my cursor over here, and now I'm moving it over here, and now I'm moving it onto the point. What'd you get for that one when we're ready? 0.5. So my two answers are x equals 3 or x equals 0.5. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you guys over here to work on the next problem. You guys work on problem C, and you guys work on problem D. All right, so if you want to do it as a big group, that's fine. If you want to get in little groups, that's fine. But let's work together, share our calculators, and get these done. I do want to say to all of you though, B, C, and D, before you do the problem, please get it set equal to 0. So rearrange the problem so it's equal to 0. You can use mine. All right, let's go. Only for this one problem. Yeah, so you have what? After it asks for left bound. Okay, and you move the cursor.
Can we not put equals 25?
No,
Well, I should just go minus 25. Minus 25 then.
He playing this week? Running back? Rusty. You went all the way to center.
I know, I'm going to me out a
This would be right.
They won't be able to work this actually. What do you do? I already told him he's trying to go.
We have to do that.
He's doing boys. He's blowing. That's what I heard.
I think even like cash. No, I'm talking about
They're always hanging out.
All right, let's get the answers up here so you'll have the answers in your thing. B, C, and D. What? Anybody got answers yet? Not yet. Why are you resting?
I just realized mine's dead. What are we
You
looking at?
just realized it's dead.
Not just because I realized it's not on that. Don't you have to change that?
Okay, now,
No.
the only, okay, listen, here's a question. She said, Mrs. Ford, when I graphed this on my calculator, I got something that looked like this. Now, remember, that is perfectly okay, because what points are we looking for? The places where we cross the x-axis. Now, if, and this will happen to us soon, if we were interested in the minimum point, which would be right here, then we need to graph it again because we don't see that. But right now, that's irrelevant to me because I can see the points that I want. Your job is to find the x-intercepts. You got an answer, B, for your problem, which you were B. What did you get as your roots? 3 and 5 for the first one. All right. How about you guys in the middle? Have you gotten yours yet?
I got 1.3 and
-5, and I think it's 1.3 repeating, isn't it? Yep. Okay, and D, what'd you guys get?
-2.5 and 2.5.
-2.5 and 2.5.
Oh, what?
Excellent. Now write down these answers, and then on your own time, go back and make sure when you have your calculator, make sure you can get these answers. I believe they're correct.
I have a question. When I do my second one and I press enter, it says like error quit.
You're probably not, you gotta reset your bounds. Okay, so I'm just gonna quit out of there and start over again. Okay, so I'm gonna find that one right there, so second count, 0. That's actually a fine place for the bounds, so I'm just gonna press enter. And I'm gonna move it up here, press enter, transfer, and move it right there. Okay, you got these written down? Okay. Next on the agenda then, it says solve using square roots. Now, I do not have any idea what this discussion is about, but it is not nearly as important as solving this equation using square roots. Alright, that's our goal right now. We're going to solve this equation using square roots. Do you know what that means? What are you supposed to do? Do you think? Square root both sides. Now, some of you might divide by 4 first, so that you have x squared equals 25 fourths. It does not matter, okay? You're going to take the square root of both sides. Now, what does matter, kids, is it's plus or minus when you take the square root of both sides, okay? It's plus or minus. 2 answers, 2 points of intersection, 2 answers anytime there's a square in your problem. Now, how do you take the square root of 25 fourths? Take the square root of the top, which is 5, over the square root of the bottom, which is 2. Now, those of you that square rooted from the beginning, you're going to get exactly the same answer, because you're going to get 2x equals plus or minus 5, and then you're going to divide by 2 and get exactly what I did. It doesn't matter when you square root both sides. I like to get my x alone when I square root, but you don't have to. All right, let's look at B. A little bit more complicated problem, but it's exactly the same strategy. X minus 3 squared equals 25. Okay? What happens when I take the square root of something squared? They cancel, right? And I have x minus 3 equals, what do I put over here? Be very careful. Plus or minus 5. I got to get x by itself, so x equals 3 plus or minus 5. Now that's 2 different answers, right? What are our answers? 3 plus 5, which is 8, and 3 minus 5, which is negative 2. So 3 plus 5 is 8, 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Got it? Because the next one is a little bit trickier. They're getting a little harder as we go. Any thought on this one, getting started? Now be careful. I can't distribute the 3 because that parentheses is squared. Now, could I FOIL out the parentheses and then distribute the 3? Yes, but that would be way too much work. I'm way too lazy. I don't want to do that. Any other thoughts? It'll work. That will work, by the way. You can do it that way. Just take longer. Any other thoughts? Can you divide by 3? Absolutely you can divide by 3. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you divide both sides by 3, doesn't it look just like this problem then? The only difference is when you take the square root, these will still cancel. You get x minus 4, but what do you get over here? Plus or minus the square root of 3. This time we're going to have a radical in our answer. And that's just what happens. So I'm going to add 4 to the other side. I personally, just my personal preference, like to have the 4 at the beginning. But if you said plus or minus root 3 plus 4, that would be absolutely fine. Doesn't matter. Add 4 to the other side. Good? All right, one more. Anybody have a thought on how we'd start this one? Square root. Everything's set up. We're just going to square root both sides. Okay. So these cancel. So 2x plus 1 equals plus or minus 4. Beautiful. Now we're just going to solve like we... You have to ignore him.
I'm trying to.
We have to solve this like always. So we're going to subtract 1. And then we're going to divide by 2. Would everybody agree with that? Now you need to simplify that. So 1 at a time. Negative 1 plus 4. 3 divided by 2. So one of your answers is 3 over 2. Negative 1 plus 4 divided by 2. What's our other one? Negative 1 minus 4 divided by 2. Negative 5 over 2. Do you have a question, Trey? Just stretching? All right. Now, I want you to think about what we've done so far this morning. After we did our little review problem, we took a quadratic equation, an x squared equation, and we graphed it on our calculator, and we found where it crossed the x-axis. And these were the answers to the equation. These that we just got done doing are squared equations. Now, they're not all FOILed out, but that would be an x squared if you FOILed it out. These are quadratic equations too. And we answered them by taking the square root of both sides. Now look at number 3. It's another quadratic equation, but the directions say solve by completing the square. How many of you have heard of completing the square before? Every hand in this room should be up. You all completed the square. Now, do you remember how to do it? That's a different thing. Does anybody remember?
Yeah.
Do you have to like add the? I know.
Yeah, you do. You add the 7 to the other side. So step 1 is add 7 to the other side. And leave a little space in here, because the reason you added the 7 was to make room for a new number that you are going to add. Hopefully it's starting to look familiar. We're going to add something to both sides.
You divide the 6. You divide by 2, the 6, and then square it.
Exactly. Did you hear what she said? Say it louder.
Divide the 6 by 2 and then square it.
To find this number, we divide this one by 2, or take half of it. So I'm going to take half of 6, divide it by 2, and that gives me 3. And then I square that, and that gives me 9, and that's what I add to both sides. So how do we get that number we add to both sides? We take half and square. Now, why did we do that? Well, see this guy right here? You should be able to factor him now. And when you factor him, it shouldn't be just 2 random factors. They should be the same. This is a perfect square. That will factor as x minus 3 squared. X minus 3, x minus 3. Do you see that? That should always be true. That should always work. That's why we call it completing the square. So x minus 3 squared is now equal to 16. Remember, you added 9 on this side too. Look at that problem. Didn't we just do some that looked like that? So we'll square root both sides. Don't forget the plus or minus. The square root of 16 is plus or minus. So x equals 3 plus or minus 4. So what are my answers? 2 again, always 2. My answers are 7 and negative 1. And in case you didn't get that, what he did was 3 plus 4 and 3 minus 4. Computation there. So 7 and negative 1. Are we okay? All right. Would you try the next one with your partner? The people sitting next to you, would you work on this one together and see if you can go through the steps again? So go back and look at your example we just did and think about what the steps were. Clayton, what's the first step? Do you remember? To get us started? You put the 2 on the other side. Remember, you are making room for a new number. Okay, so then you got to remember how to get the new number. What did you add to both sides?
16.
16. Beautiful. And how did we get 16? Half of 8 is 4 squared is 16. Now, this should be a perfect square. Camry, is this a perfect square?
Yes.
What square is it?
4.
X plus 4. The quantity x plus 4 squared equals 18. Trey, what do we do next once we get that square figured out?
X plus 4. Wouldn't you take half of that? Right?
Well, we already did that part. We took, that was up here, to find this 16, we took half of 8 and squared it. So half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. So that's how we got the 16 that we added to both sides. don't just tell him the answer. I mean, you're a good friend, you wanna help him out, I get that, but he needs to pay attention. Alright, so then we get x plus 4 squared. This guy right here factors into x plus 4 squared, and that makes 18. Alright, now, what do we do next? Yes. Trey, you need to figure that out on your own.
No,
now.
I know it.
Okay, at this point, we're gonna square root both sides. These cancel. X plus 4 equals, don't forget, plus or minus root 18. What about root 18? Did you catch it?
3
root 2. X plus 4 equals plus or minus 3 root 2. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus 3 root 2, or plus or minus 3 root 2 minus 4, if you like to do it that way. Either one. That's the answer, or this is the answer.
So you can really get
No.
always have to simplify.
Right. Now, that's not going to be like all wrong. Show me some a little bit.
I think 2 minutes.
Are we counting down the minutes? Is that what
Oh,
we're
no.
doing?
I enjoy doing that problem.
I enjoy doing every problem. All right, here we go.
Good one.
C. Now, I want you to do this one with your partner also, hopefully successfully, but there's one thing we have to talk about before I set you loose on it. What's different about this problem?
You can divide it by 2.
Yeah, there's a 2 out in front of that x squared, and kids, now listen to me. You can't complete the square if there's a number there. So if you are completing the square, step 1 is get rid of it. Get it out. So we're going to divide everything in the problem by 2. Now notice, I divided every single thing by 2. So I'm left with x squared minus 10x plus 2 equals 0. Remember, 0 divided by 2 is just 0. Okay? Makes me think of this year's Math League t-shirts. I'm going to give away the surprise, but we just finalized the design. They are so cool. On the front, Cathedral Math League. It's all fun and games. On the back, until someone decides to divide by 0. Yeah, I know you want one. You'll get one. They have a long sleeve option this year. Yeah.
What color though?
Well, I haven't gotten the color approved. We're hoping dark green, but we're only allowed to use certain colors, and they haven't approved it yet. So I'm gonna get that done today. But we're hoping dark
Are there some
green.
colors inappropriate?
I don't know. They just have rules about which colors you can use. Okay. All right. Now the equation looks like it's supposed to, right? So Tony,
Subtract 2 on both sides.
you are amazing.
Good, T-Bone.
Finn, what's next? Oh, not yet, sweet pea. Look where we are. I don't have any squares yet. I gotta do something here. I need to figure out what I'm gonna add to both sides so that I can get a square. 25. And how did you get 25? That's exactly right. Yep, half of 10 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. Everybody good with that? Now, this is a square. Julie, do you know what square that is? Well, it's x minus 5. Always x, always whatever that is. So that's a minus this time. Before it was a plus, so we used a plus. And then, yes, 5 equals 23. Caroline, what's next? Square root both sides, very good. And these are gonna cancel, so x minus 5 equals, don't forget, plus or minus root 23. And then Luxon, our last step is
To add the 5 over.
add the 5 over, and you can add it at the front or the back. I like to add it at the front, but that's my personal thing. You can add it at the back. So you could have plus or minus root 23 plus 5. That would be fine also. Everybody okay with that? Well, by golly, look at the next set of directions. As if we have not solved enough quadratic equations. Now we're going to do some more. And we're going to quit watching the clock because we're having the time of our lives.
Yes, sir.
Note the directions. Solve by the quadratic formula. Now, could I add 9 to both sides and do what I've been doing? Yes, but that would be completing the square. Would I get the right answer? Yes, but I wouldn't be following directions. So I'm going to follow directions and use the quadratic formula. I can't use it though unless I remember what it is. Does anyone remember the quadratic formula? X equals opposite B
Oh my god.
D squared minus 40C over 2A.
That is it
Go, girl.
exactly. She remembered. Good for her. A plus. Write that down somewhere on the paper if you don't know it already, because you need to know it.
That's it right there.
This is the
Yes.
quadratic formula. This is not the first time you've seen it. What do the letters A, B, and C in the formula stand for? When you write a quadratic equation, the standard form is this. Don't be confused by that. A is just whatever the coefficient is on the x squared. So for our problem, A is 1, right? B is on the x, so our B is 8. And C is just a number, with no x, just a number, so our C is -9. Now, you don't have to write these down every time, but I think it helps to do that. Just make a list of what A, B, and C are, because then all you have to do is take those numbers and plug them into the formula. So x will equal what? -8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared, which I'm going to go ahead and write 64 because I know that's 8 squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A. All right, what should I do next? I see Tag's typing away on his calculator. What's he doing? He's figuring out what all this mess is right here. Now be careful. Negative times negative would be positive.
Plus 36.
So you really have 64 plus 36. So we have -8 plus or minus the square root of 100. And the square root of 100 is 10. Oops. You need to do the arithmetic. You can divide by 2 or divide by 2. Leave your things here. We go out the back door to Mr. Thompson's room. And we move far away from the building. We gotta get fire trucks in. So you gotta get out of the way. Out the back door, move far away from the building. Joe, hurry up, I gotta go check the bathrooms. Make sure you guys are out first. Rush, rush, rush. You don't wanna burn out. good to have practiced.
Did the tornado mess anything up?
Actually, it did some damage, not in school. damage to the building.
I got the keys.
But the neighborhood down on 56th Street got
He's
it.
freshman kid.
Okay, let's see.
I got the keys.
All right, you're going to flex time, people.
Do we have it?
And wait a minute, you haven't flex assignment.
We're going to the auditorium.
You hear that?
Yep.
If you're a senior, you're going to the auditorium.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad you know that.
I wish I was thinking.
I'm always prepared, Mrs. Ford.
Yes, indeed. All right, so seniors head to the auditorium, gather your things up. Oh, DJ, I turn off the video. We just videotape your